Hi fans of Pretty Distressed, it's Christina. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel and you like what you see, please subscribe or give me a thumbs up. Today I'm doing something a little different. I will not be working with chalk paint or furniture. I'm going to be redoing my banister. This is a project that I have been wanting to do since we moved in about 4.5 years ago. We redid our floors when we moved in, so we have hardwood all throughout this floor, and it's kind of like a walnut color, so it really doesn't go with the honey oak banister that we have. The banister's sturdy, it's in pretty good condition, so I couldn't justify replacing the whole thing, especially for how much that costs, so I just wanted to update it with a little bit of stain and a little bit of latex paint. I've used General Finishes gel stain before, and I know you can use it right over a finished surface and you didn't have to strip or sand, which I was really excited about. As I was researching what I wanted to do to my banister, I couldn't really find the right tutorial for what I was wanting to do. So I decided that I was gonna make a tutorial for you guys if my process went well. I've already completed most of my banister. I have a second story for you and I have a catwalk up here. I learned a lot of things along the way, so I wanted to share that with you guys, and luckily I saved this little tiny section at the bottom of my stairs so that I could do a step-by-step tutorial for you. So we're just gonna update this with a little bit of gel stain and some latex paint today. So let's get started. All these items can be found at your local hardware store, Home Depot, or Lowe's. If you don't like going out to the store, I will link everything below in the description box to Amazon. Please know that if you purchase these are affiliate links, and Pretty Distressed will get a small commission for anything that you buy. The first thing we want to do is clean off the banister. So for any parts that are going to have the stain applied, I'm going to use this Mineral Spirits to clean that section off. Do not want to use this on the sections where the latex paint is going to go. For that, we're going to use this denatured alcohol, watered down by 50%, and we're going to put that in a spray bottle. These are Scotch pads or final stripping pads. We're going to apply either the Mineral Spirits or the denatured alcohol to these and clean the corresponding parts of our banister. These blue gloves are nitrile gloves. I hope I'm saying that right. I prefer these over latex. They're just a little bit stronger and don't break as easily. You're going to need these to protect your hands from these chemicals that we're using, and then we're also going to use them when we stain. So make sure you get a big box. So here I'm taking the Mineral Spirits and applying it directly to my Scotch pad. I don't recommend you doing this because I actually spilled it all over the floor and made a huge mess. The better idea is to get a stainless steel bowl, put a little bit of the Mineral Spirits in there, and dip your sponge in there. So the next thing you're going to do, really easy, just rub this all up and down the portions that you're going to stain. As you can see, it's kind of dripping all over the floor, so do make sure that you cover up the floor and the carpet with protective covering before you get started. This step is really important to make the stain adhere correctly. As you can see, there is a lot of gross stuff sitting on there, so do not skip this step. Okay, now we're moving on to the portion that I'm going to paint in latex. So I'm taking that denatured alcohol, watered down 50% in my spray bottle, sprayed it directly on a cloth, and I'm wiping all that section down right here. As you can see, this one is very dirty as well, so make sure you clean it up. The reason we're using the denatured alcohol versus the Mineral Spirits is because Mineral Spirits and water-based paints do not work well together. So I just want to make sure that everything's going to adhere to the best ability, so that's why I'm using two different products here. So while that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and tape off all my areas that I want to protect from my stain. My stain is an oil-based stain, so it is heavy duty pigmented, and I do not want it getting on anything because once it gets on stuff, it is very difficult to get off. So make sure that you over tape so that you're protecting everything. You also want to make sure, again, that you're protecting your carpet and your flooring underneath your banister. At this point, we really don't have to worry about any of the stain getting on parts of the banister that we don't want it to, because we're going to cover those up with primer and latex paint. So don't go crazy and be super sloppy, but you do not have to tape off the spindles below the banister. Next, you're going to want to make any repairs or fill any nail holes that you might have in your banister. So just take a basic wood filler and a putty knife and just fill up all those holes, then let it dry. Check the drying time on the can of your wood filler. Once it's all dry, you can go ahead and sand it. I am using a 220 sanding pad just to smooth everything out and get it ready for finishing. Sorry about this crazy lighting change. The sun started going down on me. Right now what I'm doing is getting all that dust off that we created from sanding. So I'm just using a paper towel to dust this off. You could use a tack cloth or anything like that. Just get all that residue off for a clean surface. Okay, final prep step before we start staining is we're going to take that sanding pad I just used and give the wood just a light rub down. You're definitely not taking off any finish, just roughing it up just a little bit to give that stain something to stick to. And finally, you're going to take that damp paper towel or tack cloth and just wipe down any remaining dust that's on the banister before we break out the stain. We are finally ready to start staining. So here I am opening my can of General Finishes gel stain. It's in the color Antique Walnut. They do have a variety of shades. Java Gel is its most popular color, I believe, which is a little darker. But again, I'm trying to match it to my floors, so I did select Antique Walnut. It's a very thick gel-based, oil-based stain, so you want to make sure that you wear gloves and you want to give it a great big stir before you start applying it. The items I'm going to need for staining are these paint rags. I got these at Menards. They're really interesting. They are lint-free, which is the key. They almost feel like a paper towel. They're all dried out, but they are actually cloth once you wet them. Very, very cool. And I'm going to use this applicator. It's just a foam brush. These are like 79 cents at the hardware store. So I'm going to take my foam brush and I'm going to dip it in my gel stain, and I'm going to pick up that lint-free cloth, and I'm actually going to turn this into a polishing pad. So what I'm doing is putting some product on here. As you can see, just painting it on, getting that cloth nice and wet, and you will see what I'm going to use that for in just a second. So I am diving right in. I have dipped my foam applicator into my gel stain again, and I am just painting that on. I'm going to paint this on the handrail as well as the newel post, and the balusters I am leaving to paint with latex later. So again, I'm just going to do a nice coating all up and down here. You want the stain to set a little bit before you start wiping it off, so make sure you take this in sections. You could pack this stain on really thick and just leave it kind of almost like a paint. I don't like that look, so what I'm doing is actually taking this polishing pad and wiping most of the stain off. I'm using a very light hand, and since I do have some stain on my rag, it's actually pushing some of that stain back into the grain. When you're doing this, you want to make sure that you are going with the grain of the wood so it doesn't get all funky and streaky, and make sure that you don't have any big blobs. Just rub it in all really well with a light hand. So now I'm just zooming you in a little closer, doing the exact same thing that I did on the handrail. I have sped this process up a little bit just so this video doesn't end up being 30 minutes long. Obviously, take your time and be as methodical as you want to be. This process does take a while to get the hang of it, so I recommend starting in an area that isn't seen that much and work your way down to the most heavily viewed area of the banister. On this first day of staining, you're also going to stain underneath the handrail. You'll only have to do one coat under here. We just want it to match everything, but you really don't have to pay a lot of attention under here. But just make sure you do this on the first day. We're going to let this dry for 24 hours before we do any more coats. I ended up doing 3 coats on this piece just to match what I had done upstairs. If you like the way it looks after 1 coat or after 2 coats, please feel free to stop there. It's really up to you how deep you want the stain. The process is going to be exactly the same for each additional coat, so just follow all the steps that we went over on day 1. Just a little side note, make sure you dry out these applicators and rags each day outside before you are throwing them away. Here I'm doing one last tight shot for you in real time just so you can get a feel for how this goes. This is my last coat, putting on my 3rd coat so you can see how this process here will deepen this up. So I've now achieved the color that I want with the stain after 3 coats, so I'm going to let this dry again for 24 hours. Then I'm going to begin to prep the banister for priming and painting. So at this point I want to protect any pieces of the banister that I do not want to get covered with paint or primer, so I am going to tape underneath the handrails at the spindles or the balusters, and I'm also going to tape the wall to make sure I don't get any white paint on my wall, and I'm also going to protect down by the newel posts. So again, just cover up any of those sections of wood that you don't want to get white paint on. This is the 3M Scotch Blue pre-taped painter's plastic. It's not a sponsored item, I just wanted to try it out. This product is by no means necessary, but I did see it at the store and it really caught my eye, so I'm trying it out today. It is actually a painter's tape and drop cloth in one, so you just put the painter's tape on like you normally would, and then you can pull out this really nice big drop cloth. So amazing. For priming today, I'm going to be using this Zinsser Bullseye 2 multi-purpose primer and sealer. And I'm going to be using this Worcester Shortcut Angle Sash paintbrush. It's the best brush to use to get in between the spindles. A long handle is really going to get in the way. The reason I selected this primer is it is a water-based primer, so it makes brushes and everything really easy to clean up. It's also stain blocking, and the best part is that it sticks to any surface without sanding. There's no real special way to apply this. You're just going to paint it on like you would a latex. I do recommend going with the grain because it just makes things a little easier and it will hide some of your brush strokes. You are going to still be able to see some wood coming through, so don't think this is going to completely cover whatever wood you have underneath. I only did 1 coat of primer. You're more than welcome to do 2. I'm just a little bit lazy, so that's why I did 1. Just to make things easier on yourself, make sure that you don't have any huge globs or drip marks so you won't have to sand those later when it dries. This is ready for top coat after 1 hour of drying. For the top coat, I'm going to be using Sherwin-Williams Pro Classic Interior Acrylic. This is water-based, so again, it's easier to clean up. I had this on hand because this is what we use to paint our trim. This is a high-performance coating. It's non-yellowing and it withstands a lot of wear and tear, so it's perfect for a banister. And the best part is this formula goes on smooth without brush marks. You can also tint this paint to any color that you want. I like a really bright white, so I actually did not tint it at all. Overall, I did 2 coats and I was happy with the coverage. You're more than welcome to do as many as you would like to get the coverage that you want. Next up, I am going to use a top coat on the stained portions of my banister. I'm going to be using this General Finishes High Performance Top Coat in flat. It is water-based, so it's easy to clean up. It looks kind of milky. All you have to do is stir it up and then you can start applying it with a foam brush. So you're just going to dip your foam brush right into the can and apply this in a very thin coat. It is milky white in consistency, but then it dries down very clear and flat. Just make sure when you're going along that you don't have any drip marks or really noticeable bubbly white patches. You really don't want to overwork this, so as you're putting it onto an area, just really smooth it out and then move right along, and do not go back over it and try to fix it in a couple of minutes because it will have already kind of set and you'll just make a big mess. This step you could actually do right after you're done staining. The only reason I painted before I added my top coat is because I did the top coat all at one time. So I did the catwalk and the upper part of my banister as well as this little section all at the same time. General Finishes recommends doing 3 coats of this top coat or more. I did 3 on my heavily used areas, and then on areas I know where people aren't going to be using the handrail as much, on the catwalk I only did 2. General Finishes also recommends sanding in between your coats with a really fine sandpaper, like a 400. I tried to do this and it started scratching my stain and taking some of it off, which I was not happy about. So I decided not to stain in between coats. I don't know if that's going to affect wear, but again, it's up to you if you want to sand between the coats or not. And here's a little tip for you in between coats. You can save this foam brush and just stick it in a Ziploc bag, squeeze all the air out of it, and you can reuse it and reuse it until you're done. Dry time for this top coat is 2 to 4 hours. If it's a little cooler, you're going to want to wait 8 to 10 hours to recoat it. So here is just one more shot of me putting on my final and 3rd coat of top coat. As you see, it goes out really wet and shiny, but this does dry down to a very flat finish, which I really like. So this project is finally complete. From this honey oak banister to a 2-toned beauty. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I do want to warn you guys, this project isn't for the faint of heart. You do need to enjoy painting and you do really need to take your time and be methodical with it. It's not something you're going to be able to knock out in a couple of days. It took me about 2 months, I think, to complete this thing, but I'm a stay-at-home mom and I have kids, so you might be able to knock it out a little faster than that. But I just want you guys to have realistic expectations going into it. Thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. If you like it, give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave, and you can always check out prettydistressed.com to see some more of my work. I'll see you guys next time.